Don't you know I'm pumped up my kicks, ho? Night City, you know I'm at back, baby. She don't got no customer, though. In the love of clubbing, baby. That's just how it goes, though. I don't need a sofa. Somebody I used to know. Video game half mask. She just want the black flag. I just gotta sweat her. That just be the weather. Skinny lover, baby. She a blondie. That's just new slang for them tightrope mommies. Yeah, that's right. Don't mess it up. That's the move, girl. Don't mess it up. That's my groove, girl. The less I know, the better. Baby girl, I rip high. When I start sleeping on the floor, when I get hot. 10,000 opioids. 10,000 in a row. Boy, baby, what you want? Money and the chemicals. Electric love.
Hello. Hey, it's Willy P Reacts, Willy P Streams, Willy P 417. Willy P 417 on TikTok and YouTube. One Willy P 417 on Twitch. How you guys doing today? You know, how you doing? Yeah. No, I'm just messing with you guys. But for real though. Okay, so this one's called FBI and ICE raid Somali judge's office in Minnesota. 26 dirty cops and drugs exposed. And this is by Cypher Signal. So go and throw them a subscribe, throw them a like, throw them a view, throw them a comment. Let's go ahead and get into this thing, guys. Let's kill it.
Trump's war on drug trafficking getting even larger in scale, the president declaring cartels as unlawful combatants, paving the way for wartime powers.
5:18 a.m., Minneapolis, Minnesota. A federal raid in the dark. A judge under secret surveillance. Encrypted routes. CJNG shipments. The largest breach in Minnesota's history. If you want the full truth behind this operation, hit like so this story reaches more people.
And they're operating these networks around our entire country. So we are going to keep our entire country safe. We're going to protect all Americans.
6 kilograms of cocaine found inside the judge's own office, carried by the woman appointed to uphold Minnesota law. This wasn't a cartel warehouse. This was the seat of justice. Turned
No way. 6 kilograms of cocaine in a judge's office? You got to be out of your freaking mind, woman.
into a supply line. This wasn't an outside threat. This was betrayal wearing a judicial robe. If you want to see how deep the rot goes...
Hey, but for real though, that's a real life thing that happens. Like judges and lawyers and shit like that, they be on coke. They be doing all sorts of drugs.
We go deeper. 5:18 a.m. Minneapolis was quiet and cold. Frost coated the car windows, and nothing on the street signaled trouble. But a federal raid had already begun. Unmarked cars pulled up outside Judge Layla Mahad's office. Doors opened, heels clicked on the pavement, and FBI and DEA agents entered without a sound. A battering ram smashed through the reinforced door. The building shook. Family photos beside the American flag swayed. A reminder of an oath once sworn, now broken. Agents swept room by room. Drawers were empty. Lights cut through the darkness. Behind a false wall, they found 6 kilograms of tightly wrapped cocaine and 7 firearms stored in foam-lined cases. Then came the shock. A hidden safe covered in dust was opened to reveal $81 million in sealed cash. On the desk, an unlocked phone flashed encrypted messages, routes, dates, and commodity codes tied to CJNG shipments. This was betrayal built inside the law. If you want to see more of this network, click like and
What?
comment yes below to support the channel and help produce more content. The deeper agents dug, the more terrifying the picture became. Judge Layla Mahad, 49, is Somali. She had not been trapped or blackmailed. She had built the door, held it open, and chose it against the country that had given her power. She was an architect of a network. In 6 years, more than $61 million in cash, plus another $118 million in suspicious transfers, moved through 29 shell companies registered in Minnesota, Wisconsin, Panama, and Curacao. Not one of those companies sold a product. Not one had a phone number, yet they handled more money than some banks. Every dollar came from one source, CJNG cartel routes. The people involved were not nameless gang members on street corners. They were officials invited into the system. A bank director approved transfers at midnight. A local police chief signed special access forms for cargo screening. And in the shadows of these approvals, trucks rolled, shipments moved, and cash flowed back. This was not bribery. This was system design. At 2:17 a.m., cameras caught Judge Layla Mahad entering a dark community center through a side door. No lights, no security. 3 men followed. One was later identified as Abdi Khalaf, 36, wanted in 2 states for armed robbery. They stayed 17 minutes. No words, no bags, only doors opening and closing, and the unmistakable sense of a deal happening in the dark.
Now that's just crazy work. That's just crazy work.
Then agents uncovered the darkest layer. Layla was not only moving narcotics, she was importing men. More than 580 Somali nationals had entered Minnesota through channels connected to her network. Not families, not refugees. Young men with criminal histories, gang tattoos, and military scars. Within 16 months, 57 shootings, 91 armed robberies, 9 overdose deaths, 22 forced prostitution cases, all traced to the same cluster of recruits. One attack outside a supermarket in Bloomington left 2 grandparents wounded. Police later learned one of the shooters carried a PCA badge issued by a care clinic that billed Medicaid for $1.7 million in fake services. Money meant for elderly Americans was used to finance armed violence. The line between law and crime had not just blurred, it had been erased by the very judge entrusted to defend it. A judge didn't just break the law, she built a system around it. If that makes you uncomfortable, you're not alone. Comment system and stay here. At dawn on a Thursday, the investigation no longer lived in files and evidence rooms. It grew legs, wheels, uniforms, and orders. What had begun as a quiet breach inside a judge's office transformed into Operation Northern Razor, a full-scale federal strike intended to cut through an infection spreading across Minnesota. For weeks, maps had been pinned across a wall in the Emergency Command Center. Red dots, blue arrows, circles around warehouses, clinics, apartment blocks, garages, and 2 riverfront piers. None of these places looked dangerous from a distance. They were ordinary buildings, the kind people drove past every day. But behind the walls, a cartel economy was operating.
Dude, that is just nuts. And then they had a judge literally to kind of like back up everything that they were doing. That just makes it even like, we're like, whoa.
By signatures, permits, and silence. At 4:03 a.m., across
And then like having like hidden basically routes in
the state, phones buzzed with a single command: immediate attack. More than 100 federal and local units moved at once. Black SUVs rolled down icy streets. Tactical vans positioned themselves behind apartment complexes. Highway patrol blocked exits. A Bell helicopter hovered above a line of warehouses near the river, its blades scattering powder snow into the dark. The first strike landed in a former trucking depot outside Brooklyn Park. The building looked empty, a forgotten property with rusted signs. But when agents breached the side door, they found industrial packaging machines, barrels of cutting agents, and pallets of sealed boxes waiting for distribution. 2 men attempted to run between storage rows, but K-9 teams intercepted them before they reached the exit. On a metal desk, a shipping manifest listed medical supplies destined for a clinic that did not exist. 20 miles south, another team hit a converted church basement. Stained glass windows glowed faintly as dawn approached, yet the scene inside had nothing to do with worship. Plastic tubs of pills, vacuum sealers, and cash counters filled the room. The air smelled of chemicals. A volunteer who had arrived early to prepare coffee froze when he saw agents. He was not armed, but he was terrified. Behind a wall, investigators found evidence that the building had been used for nighttime handoffs, organized through coded text messages.
Imagine being able to build an app with your name.
Like literally mind blown that they would be using. I mean, that's a super good front, you know? Like, you don't really got anything to worry about right
House in
there.
Burnsville. When tactical units advanced,
Use a
2 figures
church?
burst from the garage, sprinting across
Use a church as your safe house?
the yard. Snow flew under their feet. They carried no flags, no colors, just the instinct of flight. One vaulted a fence and tried to disappear into the tree line, but a drone overhead locked a white crosshair on the moving figure. Agents closed in. Within minutes, he was on the ground, hands cuffed, breathing steam into the frozen grass. By noon, 27 locations had fallen. Agents seized more than 200 kilograms of narcotic, stacks of cash from ceiling vents and floorboards, laptops filled with routing data appointment books matching meetings with officials who had already resigned. The shock spread faster than news alerts. From Duluth to Rochester, people stepped outside to find police tape across familiar places, helicopters circling, and unmarked trucks departing with evidence. It wasn't a foreign invasion. It was a purge of corruption hidden in daylight. Operation Northern Razor had not ended the war, but it had cut through the first layer, exposing how deeply the rot had grown. The raids did not end with the sound of
Yeah, it's like it's all the way up. If it's all the way up. If you have judges involved and you have mayors involved, you have everybody all the way down the system is involved, and it's probably super corrupt.
battering rams and helicopter blades. They detonated outward, rippling through local government, businesses, and neighborhoods that had never imagined cartel influence could move so close to their front doors. In the hours that followed Operation Northern Razor, agents began processing the evidence. What had looked like a scattered collection of addresses was now revealed as a connected system, a machine that turned drugs into money, money into influence, and influence into protection. Inside the command center, walls were covered with photos of seized documents, bank wires, notarized letters, small-town approvals, purchase orders for equipment that never existed. Each piece alone could be dismissed. Together, they formed a pattern impossible to ignore. The trafficking did not happen in shadows. It happened through forms, stamps, meetings, and signatures. Investigators uncovered ledgers showing regular payments labeled as facility fees or security consulting. One line item, repeated every month for nearly 2 years, transferred $32,000
That is a shit load of stuff. and
to a
money.
private account belonging to a police captain in Hennepin County. Another ledger listed $11,500 tied to a zoning decision that had allowed a disused warehouse to be repurposed for community services. The warehouse later turned out to be a repackaging center, the same one seized in Chapter 3. Emails between Layla Mahad and the bank director were equally blunt. Clear the transfer, no delay. Within hours, money moved. It was not bribery whispered in back alleys. It was administration. A sheriff's department received donation funds that coincided with a sudden decline in traffic stops near a specific trucking route. A city council meeting that lasted only 12 minutes approved 6 warehouse leases at once, all owned by shell companies with Somali surnames and no employees. People in government buildings began to panic. Some locked their office doors. Others deleted emails or shredded paper. But digital trails were already secured. Federal analysts worked around the clock, reconstructing timelines. Names that had once been printed on business cards were now red dots on investigative charts. Outside, the public reacted with something deeper than anger: disbelief. For years, Minnesota residents had trusted the faces behind badges, benches, and bank counters.
Nope.
The idea that those same people had cleared paths for narcotics to travel into their neighborhoods felt like a betrayal of basic safety. Seniors at a community center in St. Paul stared at news screens showing photos of familiar streets surrounded by police tape. One woman whispered, "I've passed that church every day for 20 years. I had no idea." Protests formed
And that's why I just said it was the perfect decision to have that be your spot.
outside county courthouses. Handwritten signs appeared. If the law is criminal, what justice remains? Who were we trusting? Some officials stepped forward to defend themselves. They blamed federal overreach, claimed misunderstanding, insisted on coincidence. But the facts became heavier with each hour. Emails aligned with shipments, permits aligned with payments, case dismissals aligned with cartel schedules. The corruption was not incidental, it was designed. A police union issued a short, trembling statement. The actions of certain individuals do not reflect the values of this department. Yet the statement did not calm the public. People wanted answers, resignation, accountability. Inside the detention facility, Judge Layla Mahad remained quiet. She did not request a lawyer during her first interview. She did not ask what charges she faced. She stared at a wall, hands folded. The same hands that had once signed court orders and now sat cuffed. The truth had landed with a heavy weight. This was not one corrupted woman. This was a system that had allowed her to flourish. What followed in the days after the raids was not calm. It was paperwork.
That's like, it's just mind blowing. Like I said, that like, and that it would be a judge too, like that. But that's, I mean, that's what happens when money gets involved, people change their whole system on, especially when it's like, dude, you could make we'll give you a freaking couple $1,000,000, and she's only gonna make like 200,000 at the position that she's in, or 100,000, 150,000. It just depends on what town you're in or how much your budget is. But you know what I'm saying.
Interrogation, frozen accounts, and a flood of facts that no one could soften. The evidence rooms filled.
It's kind of dumb that she would do it, and it's dumb that she had anything to where all of it was connected. It's dumb that she had stuff in her office. It's dumb that she had that much money in her office. Like, why would she not have had that at like her house or somewhere where it could be like better protected?
Quickly, and even seasoned analysts paused at the scale. What had started as 6 kilograms of cocaine and a single judge's betrayal expanded into one of the most sweeping corruption cases Minnesota had ever seen. The narcotics total, calculated across all seized locations, reached just over 240 kilograms, enough to poison cities for months. Alongside the drugs came bags of currency, gold coins, cashier's checks, and prepaid cards. Counting machines rattled for hours. By the end of the week, the combined value of seizures was $154.9 million. Much of it had been hidden in ordinary places: ceiling vents, the hollow interior of a water heater, and even inside a child's toy house in a suburban basement. The drugs and money were shocking, but they were only the symptoms. The real impact was in the names. Ledger books had pages of them. Some were criminals already known to law enforcement. Others were people no one ever suspected. A county procurement officer, a health clinic manager, a former sheriff's deputy, 2 accountants, and a church treasurer. When these individuals were arrested,
Sorry about that, guys.
they did not resist. Some cried, some stayed silent. One said, "I thought everybody knew," and then asked for a lawyer. Federal prosecutors filed charges against 137 individuals linked to the network.
And then, like, the fact that they had that many people, and the fact that she was, like, essentially smuggling. Jesus Christ, I keep doing it. Sorry, guys. No, but, like, the fact that she was essentially smuggling in criminal young men, and then also, like, dude, that's just crazy. And then
Not
that
all were
many
accused of
people-
drug trafficking. Some were charged with falsifying documents, accepting unauthorized payments, or signing approvals they knew were improper. None of the charges were minor. Every charge reflected a breach of trust. The most painful consequences did not appear in courtrooms, but in everyday places. Municipal offices fell quiet as employees were suspended pending review. Emergency elections were scheduled to replace city council members who resigned. A small-town bank locked its doors after its director was indicted, leaving residents uncertain where to cash their checks. School board meetings suddenly became heated as parents worried about safety near bus stops that had recently been used for secret handoffs. Elderly residents whose medical care was allegedly billed for fake PCA services stared at bank statements in disbelief, wondering how money meant for their health had been turned into cartel fuel. Families talked in parking lots outside grocery stores, sharing stories of sudden fear.
Because as soon as you give people power that know how to basically flex the power into doing bad, then right there it's going to always be corrupt, and especially if someone can be tainted.
"I don't know who to trust anymore," one man said. He had lived in Minneapolis for 40 years. For the first time, he kept his porch light on all night. The state attempted to stabilize. Task forces were formed. Hotlines were set up. One of the prosecutors stood at a press conference and said, "This investigation is only at the beginning. More arrests will come." Behind her, tables were covered with rows of evidence bags, each tagged with a name. Through it all, the empty courtroom of Judge Layla Mahad remained untouched. The hardwood bench was polished. The flags stood straight. Her nameplate still sat in its place. The room looked exactly as it always had: orderly, formal, dignified. But those who entered could not ignore what they now knew. Justice had been carried out there for years, while contradiction lived behind the scenes. The public began to understand a difficult truth: drugs do not.
And that lets you know also that she was probably letting off people. Like, if she was getting cases, that she was throwing her judge power to be able to.
Simply arrive in a city. They travel through permissions, approvals, and silence. Wherever trust bends, the damage begins. In cases like this, it is easy to focus on the piles of cash, the guns, the
Wherever the trust bends.
cocaine, the maps of secret routes, and the handcuffs closing on officials. Those images are dramatic and unforgettable. But what this case revealed most.
I was going to say, man, also, if you guys wanted to, a thing that was going on is that 99.2% of people watching my videos are not subscribed. Please subscribe. Please, it would help your boy out. But here we go. Wait, why is we silent? Oh, my bad, guys.
Written on paper. They function on belief. People believe that judges are honorable, that police keep them safe, that officials use tax dollars to serve
And that's supposed to be the case.
the public. When that belief
But I think that's kind of the concern with, like, using international people inside of local politics just because they moved here. And I mean, I get assimilation and all that, whatever, you're right. But using people who are immigrants who might not understand fully stuff, and then they get this huge budget from a town, and then they're able to also use the underworld of people who, getting millions of dollars, drugs, everything else, smuggling in people, making it to where you have more and more and more to where you basically are in control of, like, everything. and then from there it just goes more and more and more downhill, you know? So
The damage spreads through a city like poison. It does not move in trucks or containers.
it's just like what I was just basically saying, moves through the town like poison.
It moves through our minds. In the weeks after the arrests, older residents gathered in coffee shops and church basements. They spoke quietly, with worry in their voices. Many had come to Minnesota decades ago, raised children, buried spouses, and believed they lived in a place where the law protected them. Now, they looked at headlines that spoke of falsified medical services, bribes, and violence carried out by men who had been welcomed as newcomers. They felt betrayed not twice, but 3 times, by criminals, by the system that enabled them, and by the officials who were supposed to defend the system. What began as a drug case became something deeper, a lesson about institutions. There is a special kind of harm when those entrusted with power use it against the people. Crime in the streets frightens
Yep.
families, but crime in the courthouse shakes faith
Ain't
in the
that
very
the
meaning of
truth?
justice. A city can repair a broken window or close a dangerous alley. It is far harder to repair belief. Yet through all the fear and anger, another truth emerged. The system did not fall quietly. It fought back. Agents worked before dawn. Analysts traced every dollar. And witnesses spoke even when it was difficult. A retired nurse from St. Paul walked into a federal office and handed over records she had kept for 3 years because something didn't feel right. A young police officer refused a gift envelope and instead filed a report. A bank clerk printed transaction histories at midnight, tears in her eyes, because she could no longer accept what she was seeing. That courage mattered. Operation Northern Razor did not happen because one agency decided to act. It happened because ordinary people refused to close their eyes. They noticed, they questioned.
Well, that's crazy that many people would look at something and go like, I know that something is not right here, and then all do something about it. It's kind of honestly surprising. You usually don't see that type of behavior. I mean, you can in some situations, because most adults are pretty genuine, but um to actually be like serious, like, nah, I don't think something's right here. I'm gonna get it checked out.
They spoke. Every
Pretty
voice,
smart.
every small decision became part of a wall against corruption. The raids, the charges, the seizures, they were the visible part of a battle that had begun long before the first door was kicked open. In the end, Judge Layla Mahad sat in a federal holding cell, silent. She did not shout, deny, or explain. She simply lowered her head, as though she finally understood the weight of everything she had helped build. Outside the facility, a reporter asked an agent, "Is this the end?" The agent paused before answering. "No," he said. "This is the beginning. The system is still worth fighting for, because justice is not a building or a bench or a title. It is a promise, kept alive only when people choose to protect it." When the raids were over and the headlines began to fade, a deeper silence settled across Minnesota. Not the silence of peace, but the silence that comes after a storm. When people walk outside, look at the collapsed walls, and wonder how long the damage had been building right in front of them. Families watch the evening
Why does it keep showing the same image of like a Cambodian freaking jail?
news with disbelief. 26 dirty cops, more than 100 arrests, hundreds of kilograms of narcotics, over $150 million seized. But the true cost was not measured in
Damn.
cocaine bricks or stacks of cash. The true cost was trust. For years, Judge Layla Mahad walked into a courtroom
Yeah.
wearing a robe that symbolized fairness, duty, and protection.
And I guarantee money that she took briberies on some court stuff. Like if something came to her to where it would be more favorable for one person or the other to take like basically a cash bribery.
She swore an oath under the American flag. That oath became a disguise. Behind it, signatures were traded, doors were opened, and routes were cleared for shipments that poisoned neighborhoods from Minneapolis to Rochester. This was not an accident and not a misunderstanding. This was a system, quiet and carefully designed, using paperwork instead of bullets. No shootouts, no explosions, only forms, approvals, and silence. In the days after the raid, the political fallout began. County boards called emergency meetings. State legislators demanded answers. 2 police unions issued statements, insisting that the actions of certain individuals do not reflect the department. Yet the public did not call.
Yeah, I mean, and that's basically the truth almost. Like you can't, and that's almost in every situation, in every scenario. Like you can't blame the actions of a few on everyone and whatever the group
Outside the
may
courthouse,
be.
protesters held signs in the freezing air. If the law is criminal, what justice remains? And who protects us when protectors fail? Reporters
Now, sometimes the statistics show you that some might be more likely, but
shouted questions about how deep the network reached. No one could give a number. That uncertainty frightened people more than the drugs ever did. This case became more than narcotics. It became a warning. When institutions collapse, it is rarely sudden. Collapse begins slowly. One ignored complaint, one approval signed without questions, one official who looks away because it is easier. Corruption does not walk through the front door with a gun.
yeah, but usually money makes people move a little bit more differently.
It walks in with a smile, attends community dinners, shakes hands, and talks about public service. It hides in paperwork, budgets, donations, and sealed envelopes. That is why this breach felt so personal. It was not foreign soldiers or masked criminals. It was professionals, respected and trusted, who used their positions against the very people they were meant to serve. Yet another truth emerged. The system did not fall quietly. It fought back. Agents worked before dawn. Analysts traced every dollar. Ordinary citizens refused to stay silent. A nurse saved records because something felt wrong.
Honestly, though, crazy. Like I said, that much stuff worked out.
A young
to
officer
where they had enough evidence to be able to, kind of put the clink on all of them, like to be able to know that either this or that, they're doing wrong, they're doing right, they're
Used an envelope. A bank clerk printed transactions with tears in her eyes. That courage mattered. It was the invisible foundation under Operation Northern Razor. In the end, Judge Mahad sat in a holding cell, head lowered, as if she finally understood the weight of everything she helped build. A reporter asked an agent outside, "Is this the end?" The answer was simple. No, this is the beginning. The system is still worth fighting for. If you believe that too, hit like so this story reaches more.
Well, that was a pretty good video, man. Cipher signal. I think it's kind of a little AI, but whatever. I mean, if the story's true, that's super crazy that basically, you know, people that are high up in power doesn't, just because they got themselves into power doesn't mean that that person is a good person. And so, I mean, that's always something to consider um, when looking at your local boards and teams and mayors and judges and your teachers and anybody who has a little bit of influence or power should always be a little bit more under a microscope, in my opinion. But tell me what you guys think in the comment. If you made it this far, put pineapple in the comments. I appreciate every one of you guys for coming through and watching. This has been another Willie P Reacts. I hope you guys have a good night. Please like, follow, and subscribe. Like, follow, and subscribe.